All right. Seems to be working.
Sweet.
Excellent. Great. So I'm just gonna let that go. There's like no intros or anything. I make a separate intro, so we just start talking, and then we just cut in when we feel like it. And then I'm not sure if you saw Brad's one.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, confidence. Nice.
Sorry.
Nice.
I don't want to be intimidated by someone else's before I...
Oh no. Yeah, and then I make a little short like, oh, Alex is this. Alex is
such a great guy,
award-winning lighting designer from Auckland, and he's up to cool shit. You should check him out. This was a cool conversation. And then we start.
Cool.
Nice, man.
Sounds good.
Yeah? Yeah, that's running?
That's running, this is running.
It's been going for a while now.
Yeah. Okay. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks
for being here.
Thanks for coming over.
I never usually do that intro, but anyways. How are you, man?
I'm good. Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Just getting ready for the new semester.
Yep. Nice.
Yeah. What have you been working on?
A few things. Lights, obviously. So recently I've been doing a few lights that no one else can probably see because the camera's not facing that way. But I've got a few modular system type lights that I've designed for a company that are about to be launched in about 4 months' time. So the reason why it's going to take so long is because they have to be, these are the samples, but they have to be manufactured. So it takes that long to kind of get to the point where they can be launched. So yeah, I've been doing that. I've got a few of my own products coming out as well very soon, which I can't show you, but they will be out soon. And I'm working with a glass blower as well, which is pretty interesting, and learning kind of the process around that and what's possible with glass. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Yeah, people can't see the surrounding, but I'll make sure to include some photos. It looks, man, the first time I walked past your studio a few weeks ago, I was blown away by just the quality of what I saw through the window.
Cheers, man.
No, honestly, it's the craft, the refinement, and it looked like a store that's, in Paris or Milan when I visited, established. And I looked on the window, Alex Buckman. Alex Buckman, I know this name. And sure enough, you're staring back at me.
Yeah.
And I've known you for as soon as I was in uni, that must have been 10 years ago.
Yeah, so because you were a year below me?
Yeah.
Was that a year? Yeah.
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 That's right.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, damn, how?
Yeah.
Man, so I was super surprised and also kind of jealous, I have to say, to see this amazing space. Thank you so much for having us in this space.
Hey, no worries. No, I mean, it hasn't always looked like this. It's been like a slow progression to get slightly kind of more decorated, more products through it, so it can kind of feel more like a showroom space. But I think we're getting there, and it's starting to look nicer now. Yeah, that's good.
Well, it's definitely working.
Thanks.
And I wanted to. This is what I'm most curious about. Could you fill me in the gap, the time skip?
Since university
to now. How what were some of your major steps to getting to be a lighting designer and opening your own studio? Was this always a plan, or?
Well, yeah, I guess it's a long story, but so obviously went to university in Wellington and studied industrial design innovation, majoring in industrial design. And I don't know, for one reason or another, I always enjoyed designing lights. I think for the majority of the papers that we did at university, I tried to wedge in some sort of lighting project. So yeah, I for whatever reason, I can't say exactly what it is, but I do enjoy designing lights. I think it's the fact that they can be dormant, and they can be just a kind of something that's a feature in a space that is something nice to look at, but it also has this functionality that's quite interesting, which is light and the illumination of light. So I think that's quite interesting. And when you turn something on or you it becomes awake, how that can change a space and how that can, I guess, affect the material that it's made out of, or like the texture that's on a wall or texture that's on the light itself. I think that's quite interesting. So I've always, for one reason or another, I've always been interested in lighting. So after my degree, I did my master's, and again, that was kind of based on 3D printing, but there was also a lighting aspect to it as well. And then after that, I got a job at Weta Workshop. So I was doing prop design, which was like really fast-paced, kind of quick, high output design type of job, which was really interesting and I really enjoyed it, but probably wasn't my type of design work. And during that, I was on the side still doing a little bit of lighting design, and that was based off the stuff that I did for my master's. And after I worked at Weta, I decided to kind of dabble in my own lighting design for a little while, which was quite interesting to do, to kind of spend a bit of time doing commercial design that wasn't in university, but also wasn't kind of fake prop design like I was doing at Weta Workshop. So I did that for a little bit just to give myself a little bit of freedom, which I didn't feel like I had necessarily at university or at Weta. And then after that, I got a job at Fisher & Paykel. So that was really a bit of a learning point for me, because I went into a human-centered design type process where you were actually designing for the real world, and you had to really think about what people wanted. There were restrictions around, I guess, budgets for one. You had to work for engineers, which was really interesting as well. And it was really details orientated. So I really got to hone in kind of my design skills in a more refined way. But while I was doing that, I was also somehow a guy had found some of my work that I'd done in my master's, and he really liked what I'd done in terms of lighting design, and he wanted me to design some stuff for his house. So I got this really awesome job that was designing lights for this guy's massive house. So I was just really lucky to be able to do that and have that as part of my portfolio, and have a kind of side job while I was working at Fisher & Paykel. And that kind of allowed me to then get another job, which was with Cheetah, the furniture and lighting company, which was kind of another side job. So that was this AB pendant here. And yeah, that was, again, it was a really cool project where there was no parts, like existing parts that I had to design around. Dave Moreland, the head designer at Cheetah, he said, like, you can pretty much, we kind of want to design from the ground up and have something that's really special. So we spent like 2 years designing that light there. So I did that on the side while I was working at Fisher & Paykel. And I think that kind of allowed me to, I guess, be a little bit more recognized within the lighting industry. And then it got to a point where the jobs that I was getting, it was getting too busy for me to work at Fisher & Paykel and do a side hustle of lighting at the same time. So I kind of had to make a decision whether I kind of cut it off completely and I concentrated on my job at Fisher & Paykel, which I loved. It was an awesome job, and the designers there are like amazing. And yeah, I learned so much while I was there, but I had this opportunity to kind of go out by myself and do something really interesting. And so I just decided to do that, and it's been great so far. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, man. How how did the first person who saw the concept work that you did in your master's, how did he find your work initially?
I think he just found it online.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the work I did through my master's, I then kind of developed that into a more commercial light that I could sell. And then I entered that in the Best Awards.
Yeah.
And I think it got a bronze or something like that. And I think he found it through that possibly. He was just keen for me to do a whole lot of bespoke lights for him, and like it was just pure luck, to be honest. I was just really lucky to get that first job, which kind of allowed me to like snowball effect and do a whole lot more jobs. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, what was that the kind of 3D printed
Correct. Yeah.
lights?
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think when we were coming up at design school, 3D printing was kind of this big new, technological way of like, in every period of design, there seemed to be new manufacturing technologies, new materials that designers get to kind of harness for the first time, whether it's like steam bent wood or tubular steel or anodizing and things like that. And I think for us, one of the main things was like 3D printing and CNC. I'd just like it'd be cool to get a little bit of knowledge from you about working with, these 20th century cutting edge materials.
Well, I guess the idea behind that whole colony was called the colony chandelier, and then the colony cluster as well. The whole idea behind that kind of fractal geometry type design was the fact that I wanted to design something that could pretty much only be made on a 3D printer. So I did have like an issue around 3D printing that people were using it to create things that could be made like on a CNC lathe or a milling machine or by hand, and there was just this kind of like a lot of people designing stuff that was 3D printed just for the sake of it being 3D printed, and a lot of the time like it's not the fastest
or the most efficient
the most efficient manufacturing process by any means. So I kind of wanted to explore how could you use 3D printing in a way that was like novel and that used like that it took advantage of the actual of the manufacturing process. So I wanted to create this design that was really intricate and really difficult to make in any other way, and that's kind of how I came about with that. Was just playing around with just designs that were like so ridiculously complicated in terms of the geometry that like you would just never be able to make it in any other way.
Dude, you're so right. I have a similar pet peeve where just the concept of 3D printing when you first hear about it is kind of like, oh, design anything you want and you can just print it out. It's so easy. It's a 2-step process. Make any shape and we can hit print. And just like how you can print 2D graphics, this machine will print it out for you. And so just going by that, a lot of people have this idea of 3D printing as this design anything, make anything machine, but it really isn't, right?
It's just another tool, right? Like it has restrictions just like any other process, and it's better at some things and it's not quite as good at other things. Like I don't think when we were at uni, there was this thought that it was going to like replace any other manufacturing techniques, but I think it became pretty obvious that just wasn't the case. It is really good for some things. It's good for rapid prototyping, obviously, and I'm sure like the technology will get better and we'll just be able to produce more and more things using it. But I don't know, like there's just like it has its place, and you can use it in particular ways that are really interesting. But it's just another tool.
For sure. The other thing that I kind of picked up on when you were talking about your university career was somehow you're injecting lighting into everything that you did. Were you conscious of it at the time, or it just seemed to end up there, and then it's a pattern that you noticed in post and going like, oh yeah, like.
I think maybe to start with, I wasn't so conscious about it, and then I guess after a while, you're like, man, everything is just lights. Like everything that I'm doing is kind of turning into lights, and then it's like, well, that's kind of my passion, so I'll just continue on with that. I mean, I still enjoy designing other things. As I was like at Fisher & Paykel, and I was in the refrigerations team there, and that was awesome. Like I really enjoyed designing around human-centered design. But I think lighting's it's my passion. It's what gets me up in the morning.
I want to double click on that. Like, which part of lighting is? Do you mean the process of making it? Is it being in presence of good light and good lighting? Like, what is good lighting? Like,
I think all of the above, and to a certain extent. Like, I think if you can light a room in so many different ways, and it creates like a different feeling depending on how you do it. Like, if you have recessed lighting in the ceilings and you turn on all your lights, you have a very like kind of what we've got here, which is pretty even light. It doesn't create too many interesting spaces, but it's really good functionally for working on your computer or drawing or whatever. It's functional light. But say like you go home at night and you want a more chilled, relaxed environment, you put on like maybe a really dim, low Kelvin table light, which creates like a really nice moody space that makes you feel more relaxed and comfortable. And that kind of goes all the way back to, like cavemen days when we see a fire that's like a really warm light, and we're just attracted to that based on the fact that it's probably going to give us warmth and shelter. And I think lights can do a very similar thing to that, where it's producing these really nice environments that emotively make us feel good. So there's like that element to it. And again, it's just the way that light can like play against textures, or it can change like the transparency of glass and how light works with that, or colored glass or frosted glass, and how it can just alter materials really subtly. I think it's really nice. Yeah.
Who or what inspires you as a designer?
I don't think there's a single thing that inspires me. I mean, I can look at anything, like I can look at this table and I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful, and like stone's so nice, and it's got all these nice patterns through it and veins, and that's really inspiring. Or I can look outside and see a car and be like, oh damn, that headlight looks like beautiful on that car. Or nature is obviously, it's cliche, but it's always inspiring as well. So I don't think there's ever one single thing that makes me go, oh yeah, that's what inspires me. I think it's just life. Yeah.
Awesome. That's something that I find with
even music, right? Like for you, music's a big thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And for me, someone asked me recently when I was in Singapore. Yeah, that's right. I met quite a famous design house director, and he did work with like Kanye and all these kind of rappers and stuff. And he asked me like, what's your thing? Like, why are you a designer? Like, what about the process for you makes you feel inspired that you want to do this for your whole life, right? And for some reason, I never thought about this. And when he asked me this question, this is what I said to him, which was, for me, through design, I have the opportunity to connect all of these different worlds, which I'm passionate about, these different worlds of music, architecture, products, jiu-jitsu, and I get a real joy out of being able to notice something, and it might be similar to how you notice, how light reflects off water at certain angles, or the purling noise in the water, and get an insight from there. It's like, oh, I wonder if I can apply that to this completely other thing over there, and that kind of simple truth about how this one thing turns into this other thing can translate in a different discipline, and even if it's not physical phenomena, things like, a lot of my friends know that I've been studying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the last 2 years, and man, I learned so much about design from martial arts. Yeah, so something as simple as, let's say I want to pull you close to me so that I can trip you up or do some kind of move, right? The thing that is logical to do, right, is to grab you and pull you in, right? But what would be your reaction if I just grabbed your collar and start pulling you towards me?
Well, I mean, I'd be pretty startled,
right?
Wondering what you were going to do to me.
You trust me too much. But like most people would resist. You'd be like, oh, I don't want to be pulled that way.
Yep.
Right? And so that kind of goes opposite to what I actually want to happen, right? And it just becomes this very tensioned kind of force versus force thing if you're trying to resist what I'm doing, right? So in jiu-jitsu, you learn to say oh, if I want you to come close to me so I can do something, I would actually present you with an opposite kind of intention. I'll put my arms out and be like, don't come and crush me, right? And then what happens is they're like, oh, it's like opportunity. It's time for me to
Gotcha.
Exactly, right? And I'm like, oh no, this is not good. This is not good. And I collapse the wall. And all of a sudden, you're exactly where I want you to be, right? And so when I think about marketing, right? When I think about how do I talk to a client so that he will value what I do, right? These things kind of seep through, and there's something in there, where maybe when you're talking to a client, you don't try to sell so much, this is the right thing for you. See, look at all the features, right? Instead, I might just ask him about his problems and say, oh, actually, it doesn't really seem like you need my help. What are the consequences? What are the consequences of you not doing anything about your problem for the next 3 years, right? And and then you get into this engagement where he's slowly coming in, right? It's like, well, I can help you with this little piece over here. I'm not, and by that time, it's a very different kind of engagement than it's like, here's my brochure, here's what I can do for you, and obviously, it doesn't work. This isn't the universal way of dealing with clients, but being able to find these learnings from different places, and then apply it to, design or other contexts, and see it working. It's like, oh shit, that's cool, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just human psychology, right? And there are some basic kind of systems that work, and you're right. I can understand that would work. Yeah.
And I was recently studying Oliver Eliasson's work. I'm not sure if he might be an interesting person for you to have a look at, because he also does a similar thing where, like you said, he kind of goes out into nature, and tries to find ingredients to use in his design. And it would be very simple things about how does a rainbow work, and by deconstructing that, understanding it, he can kind of now use it as an ingredient in a composition of his own, that kind of presents something new to the world, right? Which I think is what you're doing.
I guess, yeah, essentially, yeah.
Mm.
Interesting.
So next question. Running a studio, the thing that I found is being a good designer and running a studio that does good design are two different things,
Yeah.
right? Would you agree, first of all?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And so I know, like, it was quite a shocking experience for me being quite, I felt good about being a designer. I thought I was quite competent at what I do. But when I started my own studio, it was all of a sudden, I had to do good design plus,
Yeah.
manage all these things,
Yeah.
do sales, do marketing, have conversation, all of these things, ordering, planning. And I found that there are many more dimensions to it, which like I didn't appreciate, and skills that I didn't have, frankly, at the time. And so I just want to talk a little bit about your experiences with setting up a studio and running your own design practice. What were some of the most challenging things to that experience?
Well, I guess, yeah, like you're right. Like you can't just rely on good design to kind of make you money, I guess, is the most straightforward way of looking at it from my point of view, at least anyway. Like you can't expect to do a beautiful light. Like you can make the most amazing feature light that's just absolutely beautiful, but if you can't kind of market it, or you can't commercialize it, or you can't price it correctly, then you're not going to be sustainable. So I think, you're right. Like there's an aspect to what I do, which is designing, but it's becomes such a small kind of element within the whole studio, because you have to do the design work, but then that has to be made somewhere. So you're, I guess, communicating with manufacturers and doing that side of things. So like procuring materials and parts. Then you may get some stuff back and it's not quite right. So you're doing quality control as well. While you're doing all that, you're having to kind of make sure that you're not overrunning your costs, your design fees. So that's another thing that you have to be really obviously careful about. Then you're right, once you've got the product, you have to then market it, you have to store it somewhere, you have to kind of figure out all those logistics. Then it has to be sent out to customers, and understanding how that works and making sure that you've got enough stock on hand to be able to fulfill those orders. All that kind of stuff is just, that's like 95% of what you end up doing. And the design, the actual like pure design element of it becomes quite small. And I think that's one thing that coming into, like, I understood that was the reality, but I just don't think you can quite appreciate that fact until you're actually doing it. Like when I was at Fisher & Paykel, you're a pure industrial designer. Like you go to work in the morning and you're designing, and that's what you do pretty much all day. So I might be designing something, and there might be a new injection molded part that has to be made, and it will cost like $100,000 for the injection molded part. And you're not as worried about that financial part of it if you're working for a large company, where if I have to get something made and it's going to cost me $10,000, it's like a really stressful situation. And you're like, is this going to work? If it doesn't, like it's really going to set me back, and I'm going to be, it's going to be quite difficult to produce anything else because I've just spent all my money. And you've just got to be that much more careful with how you plan out what you're actually going to do, and make sure that it's exactly what you need and what you want. And I think that's one of the most stressful and challenging parts is juggling that kind of financial side of it. Because at the end of the day, it's a business and it has to make money. Yeah. And I'm still struggling with that.
Where did you learn how to do that, or what's been helpful to you in that process
Oh, like I'm still learning. Like
Yeah.
I guess I'm lucky I've had Charmaine, who has been in business for, longer than I have. So I've been able to kind of ask her for advice. But I think it's just one of those things where a mentor is really good, but you just have to find your own way through, and you're always going to make mistakes. And it's just making sure that you're like planning things properly, and you understand, the consequences of doing making a certain decision, and just really, I guess, it's just about. For me, it's just I'm still learning, so it's hard to kind of look in hindsight to say, oh, I would have done this, or I would have done this. Like I'm always making mistakes, and I'm still making mistakes, and I'm just trying to learn from them as I go. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's been the best thing so far about having your own practice in your studio?
I guess honing your own design aesthetic and being able to kind of understand what your what your actual aesthetic is, and kind of developing that as well. I think working for other companies, like they already have their own like framework and aesthetic that you're designing to, I guess, and you're kind of sticking within their parameters, where I don't necessarily, I still have parameters that I have to stick within, especially designing for other companies, but you just have, I guess you have your own freedom to develop your own style, I guess, more than you would with another company. And I think, again, I'm still, if you looked at my work from, I guess, when I started like the 3D printed stuff through to now, it's quite different, and it's probably more simplified now. And I think that's just a confidence thing. It's about being confident with not having to add more or not having to make things look fancier. It's like just being comfortable with your own style, I think. A big thing, but I'm still developing. Yeah.
Cam, that's cool. Because from my perspective, everything that I've seen you put out has this iconic feel to it, and I was quite surprised. It was like the first time when I looked through the window, because it was a level of kind of refinement which I rarely come across, like young designers have, and I feel like are there like just as many failed experiments? Like,
yeah,
Okay.
Definitely. I guess the things that you see are like the very end output, right? Like the things that you're looking at around the studio, pretty much. Pretty much the final part, and like along the way they've been refined, so much that that they're at that point.
Me going like, how is he doing this? Where without 20 years of putting out products and being in lighting design, how is it that you're able to produce such iconic pieces with a high level of completeness, I want to say, or a level of detail that is very refined and complete. And I think you were kind of speaking to your process a little bit there.
Yeah, I think starting my concepts to start with are probably less refined, and then going forwards also using certain manufacturing techniques like glass blowing, injection molding, those kind of things. It does put a parameter around your design, which allows you to kind of create something that's maybe seems more refined as well. I don't know if I do have design. Not that I'm disagreeing with you, but that is so refined and iconic that it's better than anyone else's my age. I know a lot of other designers that create really nice work as well. So I don't know.
before this, you told me that you have a Rhino file with endless amount of new ideas that you might wish to create and actually materialize in the real world one day. How do you choose the next one to make? How do you choose the next thing to actually invest that time on, to actually go through and work out all the kinks to actually bring out? And
well, I think, going forwards, I'm probably going to be doing more work with furniture and lighting companies so I do the design and then they do a lot of the development and manufacturing, because that's a massive cost. And then so I kind of get paid for the design fee, which means that, I guess going to your question, a lot of the time if I'm designing my own products, it's around, how much time do I have and budget? Because like money is just like the main thing that will stop a project from going forward, right? So I think it's trying to, and you're also looking at trends. Not that I want to be like a trend-based designer, but you're also wanting to see what else is out there just in terms of what the market wants. So that's a big thing as well. Like, I've got tons of designs that I think that I really like, but I don't think that would work as a commercial in a commercial setting. So I think money is just a huge part. Like you have to make money to continue. So it has to be like commercially viable, and that means it has to be cost effective to make, but also has to be, to a certain extent, people have to want to buy it as well. So those are the type of things that I'm looking at but then that's like within my own aesthetic as well. So it's not like I'm chasing this trend and then I'm chasing that trend. It's just like, these are all the things that I'm going to make, and I think, or that I want to make, and I think these three things are possibly the most attractive as a commercial product. Yeah.
So it's kind of like finding like real world excuses to be able to execute something.
Yeah, sort of. Well, my checklist that I kind of work on is, okay, start with how much time do I have and how much, what's the budget? And then it's like, okay, who am I designing for, what's the age bracket? So for lighting, you're looking at, and the type of lighting that maybe I produce, it's probably like 35 years and older, I would say, just in terms of like the income that and the stage of life that you're at. It's like they've probably got their own house, they're either decorating or building, so it's probably like 35 and older. You have to look, then you look at the income that person potentially has to earn, what kind of lifestyle that person at that income has, geography, so where do they live, and then that kind of goes into what kind of spaces are they going to live in, so how do I design for that, and then producing something that kind of works within those parameters.
Well, I appreciate that a lot. So it's almost like the spark of the idea and how cool it might look, and how you might produce it is one thing, and that's a lot of what I learned at design school. But there's so many other lenses that you kind of have to make fit together to actually create something.
Yeah. It has to be. I guess it has to be accepted by people. You can't just design whatever you want necessarily and then expect someone to come and buy it. You have to, you have to work with, I guess you have to base it around some sort of human-centered type design.
Yeah, totally. And I think that is a part of the craft of being a designer. I think it's something that you can't separate as well.
I mean, I think you could ask someone the same question that they would say, I just design whatever what I want and what I like, and if people don't like it, then tough bickies. But I don't know, I think it's important to design, for people and what people's needs are, and still sure I still have my own aesthetic around that, but
I think what you're getting to is almost like the difference between an artist and a designer.
Yeah,
I feel like artists can be quite selfish in that. You know, this is my vision. It doesn't even matter if anyone even understands or interprets it correctly the way that I do, and they get to just make it. But designers, I feel like sometimes I feel like when I talk to engineers, it's like what designers do is the engineering plus humans, you know? And it's you have to understand the emotional, the psychological forces around the project, plus all the physical constraints to, I think, to do justice in the craft, on the discipline of design. And I can see that kind of embedded in kind of all the work that you've done.
Thanks.
Last two questions. I'm stealing this question from someone who just asked me recently. I can't remember who it was, but someone asked me recently, who would be your dream collaboration?
Oh, my dream collaboration. That's a good question. Ooh, maybe I don't think I've got like a particular company that I would like to collaborate with. I think more I would want to collaborate with someone who's just open in terms of open in terms of the ideas that they're willing to consider, and flexible and kind of value the same values that I have in design. I think would be the biggest thing. I don't think there's like actual companies that, also because I've worked with some people and you think that it's going to be an amazing kind of, you know, it's going to be an amazing journey, and then you realize that, you know, you might not don't quite click with that person, but then there's been other companies that you maybe are like, oh yeah, whatever, that could be interesting, but then you actually kind of really connect, and then that's what actually makes the project more interesting. I have a really good relationship with Cheetah, and I really love designing for them, and I've got multiple projects coming out with them, and but we just have a really good relationship, and they're happy for me to kind of be flexible with how I design, and I can just go to them and be like, hey, what do you reckon about this? And then and we can have really kind of open discussion about the design work, and the parameters are quite flexible most of the time. So yeah, I think that's a good example of a good relationship that I have here. That's awesome, man. I really like that answer. And it's like good collaboration, good teamwork. You can't take it for granted, I think. It's not just something that you can just expect all the time. I think you have to really work on it and find those people. And it is. It's all, I guess that's the thing, it's all about the people, right? It's I think it's less about the organization itself that you're designing for. Although I'm sure, like, you know, off the top of your head, like, I'd love to work for Menu or something like that, Scandinavian designer, or I don't know, Floss, really famous lighting design company. But, you know, when it comes down to it, I don't have those relationships at the moment, but the relationships, you know, that I do have, say like with Cheetah, are really, really special and allow me to do some cool stuff.
Thanks, man. Last question. This is a question that I ask to everyone who comes on the show. Whatever this thing is. What's a design for you that you would give a 9 out of 10 or more?
And just any design.
Any design or experience. It just can't be nature. Someone tried to give me like the sunset, and it's like, no.
I think there's a chair by a lady called Faye Toogood. It's called the Roly Poly chair. I think that's a real favorite of mine at the moment. It's super simple. I guess I'm attracted to quite simplistic design because I see like confidence in simplistic design, and I think that's one thing that I'm trying to head towards is being confident with refining your design down to something that's really simple, and not being worried that there's not enough design in it. So I think that's a pretty good example of that, where it's just like a single piece chair, and it's quite an like simple geometry as well. And a light by Ross Garden, who's an Australian designer. I think it's called the Hemera light. It's a little table light, and it's made out of stone. And again, it's like 3 parts, and it's just super simple and like makes the most of the material that it's made out of. And it's just really beautiful for how many parts it is and how simple the geometry is. And I really respect that kind of really being really confident with simple design. So yeah, that'd be two that I'm really into at the moment.
You can feel that confidence when you see it. Yeah. Right. And it's almost, I think I kind of interpret a similar kind of quality as like a clarity and priorities.
Yes. Yeah. It's pureness to the design.
Yeah.
And which is, I think, what everyone's aiming for. But yeah, that's definitely the road that I'm going on. And I'm still a developer. I see myself as a developing designer. I'm nowhere, like you were saying before about, your design seems so succinct and considered, where I think, like, I guess it's a designer's curse as well. I've been through all my design, so I know all the bits that I wish were a little bit better and were a little bit tighter and more refined. So it's hard for me to see it from a kind of someone else's perspective. But yeah, I think that's what the aim is, to get to a point where it's just super duper confident with your aesthetic and how you design, and not feeling like you have to put more into it.
Awesome, man. Did you have any questions for me?
Do I have any questions? Oh man, I wish you had asked me, warned me about this. So what do you see yourself doing in the next 5 years, design-wise?
Oh, damn, all right. Next 5 years, design-wise?
Yeah, where do you want to be in 5 years' time if you're...
Oh, geez. I think as designers, as kind of creators, as humans, we go through phases of, it's like breathing, like learning, taking stuff in and kind of expressing, and which is taking what you've learned and, creating something of value, hopefully, and outputting it somehow, And for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been kind of producing a lot. So I feel like I'd be somewhere in the next 5 years. I think I see a period of like, I need to go out there and see some new things.
Yep.
But after that, 5 years time.
5 years goes pretty quickly.
I know, right? I know. 5:35. Geez. I'd say I want to be a lot more connected globally with like-minded people. So the world that I'd love to live in, and the one that I'd like to progress, like the vision of the world that I'd like to progress, is one where the majority of people that I know, and maybe I can say the majority of the people on the planet go to work not in search for necessarily profit or status, but rather freedom and fulfillment. And I just like to see what that world looks like, and that's the world. I mean, no, honestly, that's the world that I wanted to create for myself and my friends. Yeah. Right. And the people who come into the studio for a chat, like often people that I want to meet are people who are doing this, who are in search for that kind of balance, where work isn't just this transactional thing that you do 40 years for your life so you can retire kind of thing, right? And it's not such a grand vision. Like I don't have any ambitions of like let's change the world kind of thing. But it's just like I can control that for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
And potentially my community, right? And I feel like I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. No.
And it's exactly what you're doing, man. Kind of finding your passion and understand and through trial and error, because what everyone wants to do is different. Finding a way to have this relationship with the rest of the world where you can kind of sustain your living and kind of everything that you need to feel secure and safe and happy and growing. And for the means of you getting all of that be like related to your passion,
Good wholesome answer. I like it.
Yeah. Also, I'd love to. For some reason, I'd love to do a collaboration with Daft Punk.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't care what we make.
You design their helmets or something?
I know. That'd be pretty cool. Oh, shit, I have one question about one of your products though.
Yep.
Your arbor planter and /light.
Yeah.
What's the intent? Was it always going to be both like plants and light? Because it's like such a strange idea, but then at the same, I don't know. I haven't even seen it in person, but so for those of you listening, I saw a product by Alex, which was a hanging planter.
Yeah.
Right. And has like a bowl and plants on it, and then kind of the other month, I saw it upside down with a light bulb inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Was it always the intention? Because
yeah, it pretty much was.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, the idea behind that was I wanted. Again, I was probably producing lights it was when I was doing the colony chandelier, and I wanted something that was a bit more simple and I guess pared back, and that used similar parts, but I could get multiple products out of it. So just more, I guess, getting more efficient with how I was actually designing things. So that was my first kind of look into going, okay, what's a way that I can be a bit more efficient and be a bit more cost effective with a product? And it was, that was, I guess, the first little project for that. But yeah, it's kind of, I think it really actually started as a light.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, this would be quite cool if you turned it upside down. It could be a vessel for something, and it wasn't necessarily a planter. But then it turned into a planter, and then that actually came out first before the light. So
man, the two things that I appreciate most about Good Space is lighting and plants.
There you go.
2 in 1. Dude, thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you. It was awesome.
I'd love to talk to you again in a while, and check up on you, and maybe.
Do.
Awesome. Cool, man.
Cool.
That's us.
Cheers, man.